So I'm going to talk instead about magic, and four words that I think are some of the most magical words that we know. Once upon a time. We've seen great examples today of storytellers and stories. And do you notice when somebody starts a story, how you lean into it? You kind of hold your breath. You wait to see what's going to happen next. We, as humans, crave stories. We crave connection, we crave meaning, and we crave emotion. And that's what stories give for us. One of the things that people say, economists say about the entertainment industry is that it is recession-proof. Why might that be the case? Do we need stories as much as we need food? Because the entertainment industry is about stories. So I want to tell you a little bit about how it is that I came to love stories as much as I do. I grew up in a home of stories. My mom read to us incessantly, all the time. Books like these, some of these may be familiar to you. The other thing my mom used to do is tell us stories about her growing up in a small town called Harriman, Utah. This is actually when I went to visit that small town of Harriman, Utah. I'm the handsome one on the far left. My dad also used to love to make up stories. He would tell stories about the 4 Parkin boys and their adventures in the Uinta Mountains, and how we would try to stay away from one man, a famous man, a man who we would try to capture, and he would try to capture us. And that man's name was D.B. Cooper. He was a hijacker, for those of you that don't know. D.B. Cooper was always waiting for the Parkin brothers up in the mountains. And so that's why I never go camping. But one of the things that was really incredible when we would hear stories together is my brothers and I would all kind of be doing whatever we were doing, smacking each other and kicking and punching and everything. And when we would hear a story, it would pull us together. And stories are something that makes up who my family is. Because of that, I wanted to be a storyteller. So, in 4th grade, one day I went to school and we had kind of a long-term substitute teacher. Her name was Amy Angar. And Mrs. Angar said, today, she probably said, class, today we have something very special. My son is coming to show a movie. It's a movie that he made. And this had never really occurred to me that actually someone could make movies. They just sort of came from Disney on Sunday nights at 7:30. And so we all went down the hallway of Roslyn Heights Elementary School and sat down on the cold, hard tile floor in the cafeteria/auditorium to watch this movie that Mrs. Angar's son had made. And it was the most amazing thing, and I sat there entranced. I'd never seen anything like it before. Certainly there were much better movies than that, but this one was a special movie because I didn't know that someone had made it, someone who was sitting in the room with us. And at that point, when we finished, I thought, I can do that. I can tell a story like that. I went home and said to my dad, Dad, we have to make a movie. And we had this little Super 8 Kodak Instamatic camera. It was about this big. It took Super 8 cartridges and 50 feet. And they were very expensive, but I earned enough money so that we could make a movie. And the movie that I made was called Planet X111. It has been, not Planet 13, Planet X111, because like I said about the math thing. It has been in the vaults for 35 years or so, and you are going to be some of the first people to actually see it. Since then. Really awesome special effects. That's a Fisher-Price tractor. Stop motion. You get what happened, right? The plane crashed. So I'll never forget the day that I showed this to my family and friends. We had a big premiere. I sat in the back of the room. I was sitting right next to the projector. The family room lights were all down. And I sat in the back watching people that I loved watch this movie. And it was a gift that I had made, an emotional experience that I wanted to share with them. It wasn't necessarily groundbreaking, but it was something that I had done for someone else. And as that happened, there was a connection that was created. There was magic. And so, now that I was such a budding, famous filmmaker, the neighborhood used to come over and want to see Planet X 111. And so I decided I was getting tired of that movie, and so we needed something else to watch, and so I made another movie. And that movie was called The Vampire, starring me. And so The Vampire became a story that I tried to involve more people in the neighborhood in, and I'm going to show you just a little bit of that as well. I think vampire movies are or vampire stories are eternally popular, so to speak. Well, this proved to be so successful that I decided to make a franchise, except I didn't really know what that meant. And so I began to take other kinds of ways to tell stories and put them together. I had, of course, the movie. And I also put on plays because I took over the garage. My parents were very nice. And took over the entire garage and built a theater in the garage. And we would have vampire plays. And then I made a radio station. I know, it's weird. I made a radio station and wired a speaker wire out the window and down into my brother's window. And then they could all listen to these radio dramas that I would do. And they were productions. I actually had one, but we don't have enough time, and you probably don't have enough patience. And also games, created games around this whole idea of this world of the vampire. And then also real-world experiences like spook alleys, as we called them, or haunted houses, where I completely destroyed my parents' house, and they still liked me. In preparing for this talk, and looking back at this, what I realized I was doing was creating a transmedia story. And a transmedia story is a story that takes place on multiple platforms or in multiple areas. Henry Jenkins, who used to be at MIT and is now at USC, has said that transmedia stories unfold across multiple media platforms, with each new text making a distinctive and valuable contribution to the whole. It's really an exciting way to tell stories, and we're actually seeing more and more of that now just because of the developments in technology that we have. The internet particularly has made this more of a possibility. Years down the road, after making The Vampire and Planet X 111, I'd made a lot of other movies, went to film school, and now I'm teaching film at BYU, filmmaking. And a satellite TV network approached me about creating a project that would attract a younger demographic. So I started thinking about that and started thinking about new media and transmedia tools that might be able to use to create this kind of a story. And I came up with this concept that I thought would be kind of interesting. And I approached a friend of mine, a very talented filmmaker, Jared Carden. And we got together and came up with this idea for a story that we called the Book of Jer3miah. Now, because I was teaching, I thought it would be a really great opportunity for students to get involved in the studying process and the doing process. Now, this was in 2008, and a lot of universities were talking about new media and transmedia, but no one was doing it. And we looked around to see what other people were teaching, and we could not find a model. And so we decided to go forward anyway and try it and see what would happen, because if no one else had done it, then if we failed, we could always say, well, no one else had done it. And so we created this show called The Book of Jer3miah. The Book of Jer3miah was a transmedia story. The tentpole or sort of anchor property of this was a web series. A web series is kind of like an internet TV show. And this web series had 20 episodes, or webisodes, a short form of an episode. And so we created the web series, and we were also creating all of the other story elements at the same time. I'm going to show you a clip from the finished show.
This box is a sacred trust. Do not tell anyone about this box, no matter the threat.
That's the web series. But in addition to the web series, we had a whole lot of other places where you could learn about this story, about this world of Jeremiah. There were websites, there were character blogs. All of the characters had Facebook pages. We had viral videos. And also we had what's called an alternate reality game, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But I'm going to give you an example of the way that transmedia components can actually expand the reach and the depth of a story in ways that traditional media hasn't been able to do. At one point in the Book of Jeremiah, in the web series, Jeremiah goes to his dorm room to find that it has been ransacked. If you're just watching the web series, that's great. Oh, scary thing happened. Jeremiah comes home. Someone's in his room. Someone's tied up. Okay, on we go. This is great. But if you're interested in knowing more about what happened and who was involved, you could go to other places. One of those places was Simon, the guy who was tied up, was Simon's video blog or a vlog. And this is just a snippet of a video chat. And then you'll see how it is that Simon ended up being tied up in Jeremiah's room.
Every time I try to talk to a girl, the mushroom man tells me she's in another castle. Hey, Jeremiah's back. I want to say hi to him. Just a sec.
And that's how you know that Simon ended up tied up. Now, if you wanted to go even further and find out who it was that was in Jeremiah's room, if you're playing the alternate reality game, you could then find this video, and this would tell you about what happened there. And at the end of this clip right here, the bad guy hides this camera in Jeremiah's room, and that is then paid off in a later webisode. And so what happens is this story becomes very complex. Now, if you just watch the webisodes, it's great. It's very linear. It feels very much like a standard TV show, kind of a feature film. But the more you explore the world of this transmedia story, the more sort of interesting and complex it can become. The other thing we did as we were creating this story is we created an alternate reality game, or an ARG. And they've become increasingly popular in the last probably 5 years or so with the latest Batman movie. They did a lot of really interesting things with that. This was actually before that. But our alternate reality game centered on the bad guys, because the web series focused on Jeremiah. And so we wanted to know what could we do to allow the viewers to see who it is that's after Jeremiah. We knew that not everyone would want to play the ARG, but because this was sort of a new thing, we wanted to figure out who would play the ARG, because they're challenging, they're tricky to do. And so we started out with, we created the entire mythology of the world, including the bad guys. And so we started out with a poster for an actual event that was going to happen in the Student Union building. It was for a lecture that would be taught by Calbert Davenport. And a few days before the lecture, you can see someone came in and censored some of the words at the top of the poster. And then on the day of the lecture was actually canceled. People that saw this thought, this is cool, she just took a picture of that, and that means that maybe she's playing the ARG. At the bottom of the poster, you see that there's a URL. It says thedavenportpapers.com. Well, if people went to that site, they came to the davenportpapers.com site. And that was where people could then come in to begin to play the alternate reality game. One of the cool things that happened as they did that is they started to form a community. And that's one of the things, again, that stories can provide, is a sense of connection, both to the material as well as to other people. So I'm going to show you how in each webisode we would hide clues for the ARG players that would also give more information about the story. I'm going to show you just a little snippet from this episode, and I want you to see if you can see this clue.
What if the Black Elves come back?
Open your eyes, my friend. This is proof. Proof that something is going on just down the hall from us.
Did you see it? Okay, watch again.
Friend, this is proof.
That's one frame of video. One frame of video. Those letters and numbers you see right there are called a Caesar cipher. And if you knew how to decipher those, I don't. I just know how to find an app online that will help me create them. If you decipher this, it will actually give you a GPS coordinate that will lead you to a building on campus and a room. And inside that room was hidden a flash drive. On that flash drive, there was video. And that video came from an insider in the bad guys' organization. There were a series of pictures there, as you see, one of which was our main character, Jeremiah. But all of the other pictures that you saw were actually taken from the ARG players' Facebook pages. And so as they were playing the game, they got this video, they saw it, they themselves were in the game. And that's one of the things that ARGs do that's really interesting. It blends reality and fiction. And so this whole process was quite exciting in terms of storytelling and storytelling possibilities. One of the gratifying things was seeing what the ARG players had to say. I didn't want to spoil the fun for others, so I put the flash drive back where I found it. Good job. I wish I didn't live in Logan so that I could participate more in this. And if there is ever an in-person meeting, I want in. This desire to have a sense of a community, a sense of a knowledge community, became really, really strong with people that played the ARG. We finished the show about 2 years ago, and the response has been really, really gratifying. We got a really great write-up in the New York Times and a lot of really positive publicity. But the thing that I never get tired of hearing is from the people who talk about their experience as they were watching it. One man said, "My wife and I watched the first episode of the web series, The Book of Jer3miah. Then, just one more, we said, and we didn't get to bed until after midnight in episode 20. So, maybe we made him late for work. I'm a grandmother with 27 grandchildren and 7 greats. This is a type of entertainment I hope will continue to be available for them and me. I am still a girl inside." Smiley face. And my sister and I live in different cities, and we call each other and watch the shows while on the phone. It's a great bonding time between us. I never get tired of hearing these kinds of things because it reminds me of the power that stories have to help us experience emotion, connection, and meaning. Thanks.